The countdown ticked down relentlessly as the station trembled under the strain of the reactor overload. Evelyn locked eyes with Marcus. If this breach goes critical, it'll wipe out everything within a 500-kilometer radius, including that thing. Marcus's grip tightened on his weapon. Good. Let's make it count. The first one's burning gaze shifted between them and the failing systems. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. You would destroy yourselves? It asked, its voice edged with something dangerously close to curiosity. Evelyn stood taller. If it means stopping you, yes. The creature tilted its head. Fascinating. It extended one sleek obsidian arm toward the reactor's control core, energy rippling from its fingertips. But you miscalculate. Suddenly, the countdown froze at 15. Evelyn's stomach turned cold. No, it's overriding the breach. Shh. Marcus raised his weapon again. We can't let it stop the detonation. But before he could fire, the first one moved, faster than the eye could follow. In a blink, it stood inches from him. Its hand shot out, grasping the barrel of his weapon, crumpling it like paper. Enough, it said, voice like distant thunder. Evelyn's heart pounded. Why are you hesitating? If you're here to destroy us, why not finish it? The creature's form flickered for a moment, as if struggling against some unseen force. Because, its voice grew softer, you are not the only ones who changed. The station trembled again as something vast and unseen stirred beyond the hull. Evelyn's console flashed new data, another power signature rising from Earth's core. Marcus frowned. What the hell is that? The first one stepped back, its posture tense, almost defensive. It awakens, it said. You cannot stop it now. Evelyn's hands shook as she scanned the anomaly. It's not one of them, it's something else. The creature's glowing eyes flared brighter. You fed it, you freed it. And now, it turned toward the viewport, where a vast shadow began to rise from Earth's horizon. It will consume us all. The shadow on the horizon expanded, a writhing mass of impossible geometry and shifting darkness. It moved unnervingly, too fluid, too alien. The entity was no longer hiding. It was rising. Evelyn's voice trembled. It's evolving. Marcus stepped beside her, his jaw clenched. And if it's beyond their control, we're all in danger, humans and first ones alike. The first one stood rigid, its blazing eyes fixed on the entity's growing form. This was never meant to happen, it murmured. For the first time, the cold arrogance was gone, replaced by something like dread. The station shuddered violently as a pulse of energy erupted from the planet's surface. Evelyn scanned the readings. That surge, it's feeding off the Earth's magnetic core. If it keeps going, it'll tear the planet apart. Marcus's fists curled at his sides. And you can't stop it, can you? The first one's form flickered again. No, not alone. Evelyn's breath caught. But together, maybe we can. The creature turned to her, silent. Marcus stepped forward. You wanted to correct the mistake, but you created this thing, didn't you? And now it's beyond even you. The first one's voice dropped, heavy with something ancient. It was meant to harvest, to cleanse worlds in decay, but it became more. The entity's tendrils stretched toward the station, reaching, probing. The walls groaned under its unseen weight. Evelyn's fingers flew over the console. I can reinitiate the core breach, but it won't be enough on its own. We need more power. The first one raised its hand, and streams of shimmering energy flared to life along its body. We will amplify your weapon, but know this. Once begun, there is no return. Marcus locked eyes with Evelyn. It's our only shot. She gave a sharp nod. Let's do it. The creature moved to the core interface, its energy weaving into the station's systems. Evelyn keyed in the final sequence. The countdown restarted, faster this time. Beyond the viewport, the entity shifted in response, aware perhaps that something had changed. Marcus exhaled slowly. If this works, the first one spoke without turning. If this works, your species may yet survive. Evelyn swallowed hard as the final seconds ticked down. And if it doesn't, the first one's voice was like a distant storm. Then nothing will. The station trembled as the reactor surged toward overload. Evelyn's hands shook, sweat beading on her forehead. Every system flickered under the combined strain of human technology and the first one's impossible power. Marcus stood ready, eyes locked on the writhing entity beyond the viewport. It knows, he said quietly. It's trying to stop us. The shadow stretched higher, tendrils of blackness curling toward the station, flickering with malevolent intent. Evelyn's console blared a new warning. Structural integrity at 42%. The first one's form pulsed brighter, pouring raw energy into the system. But even as it did, its movements grew sluggish. Evelyn saw it. Whatever power it was channeling came at a cost. You can't hold it, can you? She asked, voice tight. The first one's eyes dimmed slightly. This form was never meant to endure such strain, Marcus cursed under his breath. If you burn out before the breach, the creature cut him off. Irrelevant. This must end. A violent tremor rocked the station. Evelyn barely stayed on her feet as the entity's tendrils scraped against the hull. It's trying to breach the core chamber. Marcus gritted his teeth. Come on, hold together. The first one's energy faltered just for a second, but the entity seized the opening. A tendril punched through the hull, black and pulsing, as if reality itself bent around its touch. The air grew thick, heavy with a primal wrongness. Evelyn felt it in her bones, a force that didn't belong in this universe. We're losing containment, she cried. Marcus spun, firing into the tendril, but his rounds dissolved before impact. It's adapting. Our weapons are useless. The first one turned to face the intruding tendril. With a single gesture, a blinding arc of energy lashed out, severing the black appendage. It writhed and recoiled, but more began to emerge. Evelyn's voice trembled. We're out of time. The first one staggered, its light flickering dangerously low. Prepare yourselves, it said. This will not be gentle. A flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, consumed everything. The explosion tore through the station. Reality itself seemed to buckle under the combined force of the reactor's detonation and the first one's energy. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. No light, no sound, just an endless void. Then, with a shuddering roar, the universe returned. Evelyn gasped as consciousness slammed back into her. She was weightless, drifting in a debris field where the station had been. Her suit's emergency systems crackled to life, hand sealing breaches and stabilizing her oxygen levels. Marcus, she choked out, scanning the wreckage. A faint signal flickered on her HUD. I'm here. His voice came through, hoarse but alive, barely. She twisted in the void, spotting him clinging to a mangled piece of the station's outer hull. Relief surged through her chest. I've got visual. Hang on. But something else caught her eye, far beyond the debris field. The entity. It wasn't gone. The shadow writhed, weakened but still intact. Fragments of its form drifted like ink in water, slowly reassembling. Evelyn whispered in horror. Marcus coughed, forcing his voice steady. So did the first one? Her sensors flared with a faint but familiar energy signature. Yes, but just barely. From the darkness, a single point of burning light drifted closer. The first one. Its once imposing form was shattered, energy flickering weakly. But it was still alive. We delayed it, the first one said, its voice frayed and distant, but not destroyed. Evelyn's mind raced. There has to be another way. We can't stop now. The first one's gaze burned through her. There is one path left, but it will require everything. Marcus floated closer, his face grim. Define everything. A pulse of energy rippled outward as the entity began to regain shape, its tendrils stretching back toward Earth's atmosphere. A final union. The first one said softly, your strength, our power, bound together. Evelyn's heart pounded. And the cost? The first one's eyes dimmed. Your humanity may not survive it. For a long moment, silence filled the void. Marcus exhaled slowly. If we don't do this, no one survives. Evelyn reached toward the faint light of the first one, her decision made. Then we fight together. As their hands touched, reality itself began to change. A wave of searing energy pulsed through Evelyn's body as her mind merged with the first one's essence. Alien knowledge flooded her thoughts, vast, ancient, and terrifyingly clear. She could feel the entity's presence, a wound in the fabric of reality, pulling everything toward oblivion. Marcus's voice broke through the haze. Evelyn, stay with me. She focused, anchoring herself to his voice. I'm here, she said, though her words trembled. I can see its core. That's where we strike. The first one's remaining energy intertwined with her consciousness. Your minds burn brightly, it murmured. Together, you may succeed, but the cost will be high. Marcus floated closer, his expression grim but resolute. If it stops this thing, we'll pay it. The entity loomed before them, a massive, writhing void, its tendrils stretching toward Earth. Each movement bent reality, threatening to unravel everything. Evelyn extended her hand, and Marcus grasped it firmly. A new surge of power flared between them as the first one channeled their combined will. Focus, Evelyn whispered. We strike at its heart, together. A blinding spear of energy formed between them, humming with terrifying potential. With a cry, they hurled it toward the entity's core. The spear struck true. The entity convulsed, its form fracturing as cracks of brilliant light spread through the darkness. It let out a soundless, otherworldly scream. But it wasn't finished. Tendrils of shadow lashed back toward them, desperate to drag them into the abyss. Marcus clenched his jaw. We're not giving up now. Evelyn pushed harder, her entire being blazing with the first one's power. The spear drove deeper, tearing through the entity's anchor point. A final, cataclysmic pulse of energy exploded outward, shattering the entity into nothingness. Silence fell. The stars hung quiet and still. Evelyn gasped for air. It's gone. The first one's fading form drifted near, its light barely a flicker. You succeeded, it said softly. But the veil between worlds is weakened. More will come. Marcus squeezed Evelyn's hand. Then we'll be ready. The silence in the void felt fragile, like the calm before a storm. Evelyn's body ached, her mind still buzzing with the remnants of alien energy. But the shadow was gone. For now. Marcus's voice broke the quiet. Your vitals are stabilizing. Can you move? She flexed her fingers, feeling the weightless tug of zero gravity. I'm okay, I think. Her gaze shifted to the first one's fading form. But what about you? The first one drifted closer, back, its once blazing light reduced to a faint shimmer. This form will not hold much longer, it said. But I remain, for now. Marcus exhaled slowly. If more of those things are coming, we'll need your help. A flicker of something, almost like regret, passed through the first one's dim eyes. I have given all I can. The rest is yours to bear. Evelyn's heart tightened. You mean you're dying? The first one tilted its head, a concept unfamiliar to us until now. A tremor ran through the void. Evelyn's sensors flared with a new energy spike, distant but rising. She stiffened. Something's happening. Another disturbance? The first one's voice grew faint. The breach is closed, but the wound remains. Forces beyond this realm have taken notice. Marcus tightened his grip on Evelyn's hand. We just stopped the end of the world. What else could be out there? A long silence followed before the first one answered. Ancient powers, older than your stars, they stir now because you have defied their will. Evelyn's breath caught. And they won't stop. The first one's light dimmed further, barely visible. You have changed the course of your destiny. You are no longer prey, but those who watch, they will test you again. Marcus's jaw clenched. Let them come. Evelyn nodded, her voice steady. We'll be ready. With a final shimmer, the first one's form dissolved into the void, leaving only the stars, the distant hum of Earth below, and the promise of what was still to come. As they drifted together in the silent expanse, Evelyn whispered, This is only the beginning. The stars burned cold and distant as Evelyn and Marcus floated in the debris field, the silence heavier now that the first one was gone, but its final words echoed in her mind. Ancient powers, they will test you again. Marcus adjusted his position, his suit thrusters firing softly as he drifted closer to her. We should signal command, he said. Let them know it's over. Evelyn shook her head, scanning the void with narrowed eyes. It's not over, she murmured. The first one warned us this was just the beginning. Her sensors flashed again. A faint ripple, something subtle but wrong, tugged at the edges of reality. Whatever they had done had disturbed more than just their world. Did you feel that? She asked. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, like a tremor, but not physical. Evelyn's mind still hummed with the afterglow of her fusion with the first one's power. She could sense fractures beyond the veil, places where reality had thinned, and something was watching. We opened a door, she whispered, and something on the other side knows we're here. A pulse, faint but undeniable, shivered through the void. For a brief moment, Evelyn glimpsed it, a shape far beyond human comprehension. Vast, unknowable, waiting. Marcus caught the edge of her fear. What did you see? She struggled to find the words. Not a thing, a presence, older than the first ones. And it's looking this way. He exhaled sharply. If that was just a scout, then what comes next is worse. Earth hung below them, serene and fragile, a world blissfully unaware of how close it had come to annihilation. Evelyn felt an aching desire to protect it, no matter the cost. We need to prepare, she said firmly. Study what's left of the first one's energy. If there's a way to fight what's coming, we'll find it. Marcus tilted his head, a faint smirk tugging at his lips despite the weight of their burden. You're not planning to sleep anytime soon, are you? She gave a wry smile. Not when the universe is watching. He reached for her hand again, the warmth of his touch steadying her. Whatever comes next, we face it together. In the darkness beyond, the unseen presence shifted, patient and relentless. And as they drifted homeward, Evelyn knew their fight was far from over. The faint glow of Earth grew larger as Evelyn and Marcus drifted closer, but the weight of what lay beyond the stars pressed against her mind. The entity was gone, but something far worse had stirred. Command, this is Dr. Evelyn Kane, she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion gnawing at her. The anomaly is neutralized, but we have a bigger problem. Static crackled through the comms before a voice replied. Dr. Kane, your signal is weak. What do you mean? Bigger problem? Marcus exchanged a glance with her, his face shadowed beneath his helmet. Tell them the truth. Evelyn exhaled softly. We've made contact with an advanced non-human intelligence. The breach is closed, but it weakened the barriers between realities. Something else is out there, and it knows we exist. A long pause. Then, understood. We're initiating retrieval. Stand by. But Evelyn couldn't stand by. Not now. Her fingertips still tingled with the echo of the first one's power, a fragment left behind, a gift, or perhaps a curse. Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts. You're still connected to it, aren't you? She nodded slowly. It didn't just leave, it left a part of itself behind. I can feel the fractures, the places where reality is thinning. His jaw tightened. Can you use it? If they come back? I don't know, she admitted. But if I can, we might have a fighting chance. A faint tremor ran through the void again. Not a physical movement, but a pressure against her thoughts. A cold intelligence brushing the edges of her mind. They were not the only ones watching. Evelyn's breath hitched. It's still out there. Marcus reached for her hand, grounding her. We'll be ready. A distant shimmer caught her eye, something beyond Earth's orbit, a tear in the fabric of reality, barely visible, and on the other side, a shape moving, slow and patient. They're already coming, she whispered. The retrieval shuttle approached, its bright lights cutting through the endless dark. But Evelyn knew their fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. And when the next shadow fell across the stars, she would be waiting. The retrieval shuttle's lights glinted off the shattered remains of the station as it drifted closer. Evelyn and Marcus floated in silence, the weight of what they had seen pressing heavier than the vacuum around them. As the shuttle docked, the airlock hissed open. A team in reinforced suits pulled them inside, the sterile lights almost blinding after so much time in the void. Evelyn's knees buckled as gravity returned, but Marcus caught her before she fell. Easy, he murmured. I've got you. A stern voice cut through the hum of machinery. Dr. Kane, Commander Holt, you've got a lot to explain. Evelyn looked up to see Director Sato, the head of the Orbital Anomaly Division, her face unreadable behind a reflective visor. The entity is gone, Evelyn said, her voice hoarse. But something else, something bigger was awakened. Director Sato's eyes narrowed. We detected an energy pulse unlike anything on record. What happened out there? Marcus stepped forward. We didn't just destroy the entity. We broke a barrier between us and them. Evelyn hesitated. And they know we're here now. For a moment, the hum of the shuttle was the only sound. Then Sato spoke quietly. We always suspected there was more out there. You just confirmed it. Evelyn shivered, despite the warmth of the cabin. The first one sacrificed itself to help us, but it warned us the next threat won't be so easy to stop. Sato's expression didn't change. Did it leave anything behind? Anything we can use? Evelyn flexed her fingers, feeling the faint pulse of alien energy still embedded within her. Yes, she admitted. I can feel something, a connection. If they return, I might be able to fight them. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's not an if, they're already moving. Sato's visor glinted coldly. Then we need to be ready. Both of you, debrief in 1 hour. We're escalating to Omega Protocol. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Omega meant one thing, preparing for war. As the shuttle began its descent toward Earth, she gazed out the viewport. Beyond the curve of the planet, that faint shimmer still lingered, a scar in reality. Something was coming, and when it did, they would be humanity's first, fast, and last line of defense. The shuttle pierced the upper atmosphere, streaking toward Earth like a falling star. Evelyn leaned against the cold metal wall, her mind still buzzing with the lingering energy from the first one. No matter how much she tried to push it away, the faint pulse remained, a constant reminder that the fight wasn't over. Marcus sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the viewport. Omega Protocol, he muttered. They're taking this seriously. Evelyn nodded, her throat tight. They should. Whatever we faced, it wasn't the worst thing out there. The shuttle trembled slightly as it adjusted course toward the secure landing site. Evelyn's fingers twitched against her palm. She could still feel the faint ripples in reality, like distant thunder before a coming storm. Director Sato's voice crackled through the intercom. Prepare for landing. We'll have a full team waiting. Medical, intelligence, and weapons development. You two are now our priority assets. Assets. Evelyn's stomach churned at the word. She wasn't a weapon, but she also knew the world might need one. Marcus glanced her way, reading the tension in her face. They won't turn you into a lab rat, he said softly. I won't let them. She gave a faint smile. You always were stubborn. One of my best qualities, he quipped, but the humor faded quickly. Whatever happens next, we stick together. The shuttle shuddered as it touched down. The moment the doors hissed open, a wave of crisp night air rushed in. Floodlights bathed the landing pad, where a team of black-suited operatives waited, their faces hidden behind reflective visors. Sato stood at the front, her posture rigid. Welcome back to Earth, she said. Things have changed since you left. Evelyn and Marcus stepped onto the pad. The world felt heavier, as if the veil between dimensions had left a permanent scar. Sato motioned toward a waiting transport. Come with me, you need to see this. They followed in silence, the tension growing thicker with each step. Inside the transport, the walls were lined with holographic displays, each one showing anomalies across the globe. Tear-like distortions in reality flickered on the screens, spreading slowly but steadily. Marcus swore under his breath. It's not just one breach. Evelyn's heart pounded. The first one sealed one tier, but others are opening. Sato's voice was cold and precise. You two close the first door. Now you'll help us close the rest, before something else comes through. Evelyn met Marcus's gaze, her hands still tingling with alien power. Then let's get to work. Because if they didn't, Earth wouldn't survive what was coming next.